Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Deborah Wendorf with Divine Jubilee Ministries, and I have a word today that I received from the Lord yesterday. So I wanted it while I was in church. And we were singing a song, and you probably know this song if you probably heard it before, and it's called You Are My King or Amazing Love, and it's by Chris Tomlin is the one that sings it. We were singing this song in church, and I was just going along singing this song just like always. And I want to read some of the words to you, and then I want to backtrack and show you what the Lord was talking to me about during the song. First of all, it says, I'm forgiven because you were forsaken. I'm accepted, you were condemned. I'm alive and well. Your spirit is within me because you died and rose again. Amazing love, how can it be that you, my King, would die for me? Amazing love, I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you. Amazing love, how can it be that my King would die for me? Amazing love, I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you. And all I do, I honor you. And then at the bottom, at the end, it says, you are my King. You are my King, Jesus. You are my King, Jesus. You are my King. So as I'm singing this song, going along, and I think we do this way more than we realize, just singing the songs because you know the words already. And then all of a sudden I hear him say, are you listening to what you're saying? I went, okay. So in the middle of the song, we're having this conversation. Are you listening to what you're saying? I'm still hearing the words of the song coming. And then he says this to me. He says, where it says, amazing love, how can it be that you, my King, would die for me? He said, do you realize that I'm your King and I died for you? Do you realize that? Are you thinking about what that means when you say those words? I mean, are you just singing to sing? Are you hearing yourself? Are you hearing what you're saying? And then later it says, it's my joy to honor you. He said, is it? And of course, there I go again, going, wow, okay, maybe I need to look at that and see if that's really true for my life or not. Because he says, the song says, in all I do, I honor you. And then he says, do you? So I felt like I got a hand slap yesterday at church from this song. And I was like, wow. And then the very end of it says, you are my King. And he says, am I? And once again, I pause and I go, okay, obviously I need to revisit some things here because he's calling me out on some stuff. He said, you're over there singing those words, you know, that it's your joy to honor me. And he said, and do you? And then in all you do, you honor me. He says, do you? And I was like, wow, okay. So God does that sometimes. That's a disciplinary thing for him. He's trying to bring you to a closer place and a deeper place with him. And I know this is totally not, I mean, it's scriptural and some of the stuff that's in here, I'm sure it is. I mean, there's no specific verse. I'm going to show you one that comes with this, but he was on to me about that. And I wanted to share that with you because, you know, I always try to be open and honest about what goes on, you know, here at Divine Jubilee Ministries. And so he was just telling me about it. He said, you're singing a lot of words and yeah, they sound good. But one, are you aware of what you're singing? You know, that you're forgiven because I was forsaken. Do you realize that? And you're accepted because why? Because I was condemned. That's why you're accepted, because I was condemned. And you're alive and well. And the Spirit is within you. And okay, so I need to look back at that. The Spirit is within me. And because of you, because you died and rose again, I get to live now. So that's that song. But anyway, you might want to look that up. It's called You Are My King. In parentheses, it says Amazing Love, and it's Chris Tomlin. But let me show you a verse that kind of goes with that song. This is out of John 15:13, and this is out of the Passion Translation. So you've probably heard it in other translations before, especially King James, and it may sound familiar to you for those of you that have been in the Word and know the Word at all. But here it is in the Passion Translation, and it's when you hear it in another translation, sometimes, just like that song, sometimes you suddenly hear it for the first time. Listen to this. John 15:13 out of the Passion Translation. He said, for the greatest love of all is a love that sacrifices all. And this great love is demonstrated when a person sacrifices his life for his friends. And that's references back to Jesus, because he sacrificed himself, just like that song said. I'm forgiven because you were forsaken. He was forsaken by God. Now that was really hard. I mean, you know how it feels when we're forsaken by somebody? There's Jesus on the cross, who has never been separated from God in his entire existence. And now he's on the cross, and God has turned his face away because sin is there. Sin is on him now. All of our sin and all of the world's sin is now on him, and God looks away. For the first time, Jesus is separated from God, and it's a very traumatic experience. And he even shouts, with the strength that he has left, he shouts, "Why have you forsaken me?" And God had to do that in order to complete and make the transition and the purchase possible. And Jesus had to do what he did. He had to stay there on that cross and endure all that he did. And I'm talking about a mighty power, because he could have at any time, like I said before, he could have any time called on angels and they would have rescued him like that. So that was a lot of power for him to stay there and not call on them when he could have, in order to make this trade, in order to make this covenant, this arrangement, so that because of what he did and the trade that God is making, he's saying, I'm putting all of your sins and all the stuff that you did wrong that violates all the things I've ever taught you. I put all of that on Jesus so that we can make this swap. And to make this swap, you just have to agree that I did that. You have to agree that Jesus took your place. That's what you have to agree to. And accept that as fact, that Jesus took your place. And because of that, and accept that in him, that's why they say he's Savior. When you say that Jesus took your place, you're making that swap that God arranged. And then God no longer sees your sin anymore. He says, because it's on Jesus, all of that was there. And because you have accepted this trade and believe that Jesus did that for you, I no longer see sin on you at all. I see you washed in the blood of my son Jesus. And therefore, I have no memory of your sin. That's what God says. I have no memory of your sin. When you come to me with it, I don't remember it. I don't bring it up to you. I don't throw it up to you later and say, remember when you did? Oh, don't we want something like that? Where nobody brings up anything you ever did in the past before? God's like that. He's not going to bring that up again. He's not going to know what you're talking about. If you come to him about it and say something about it, what are you talking about? Because it's on Jesus. He put it there. And when you make that swap, he doesn't see it on you anymore. So that's amazing. Be encouraged today that God has made this swap. Jesus and God made this amazing arrangement together that was really, really hard for both of them to do. Imagine a father with his son and turning his face away and going, wow, and looking away and doing that for that time and for that period of time in order to make this transition and make this contract work. Wow, that's amazing. And then when he died, then the contract is now in force, because, when you have a will, you read the will, well, that's what it is. The will is for us to be saved and have to have a huge family that he desires to have. And he worked it out so you don't have to go through all that Jesus went through. He went through all of that for you, so you don't have to do that. Isn't that amazing? So be encouraged today. And when God fusses at you a little bit about something, it's okay. Just think about what he's saying. I mean, he asked me that. He said, am I? You said I'm your king, am I? Because when you have a king, you do what the king says. You don't debate with him and argue with him and discuss with him. He gives a command and you say, yes, sir, and there you go. That's how it is, just like in the military. Military commander gives you an order, you do it. You don't say, well, I'll wonder. Well, I'll think about it, or I don't know if I agree with that. That's not how it works. Kings give orders and people do. And so he said, the song says, you are my king. And so he asked me, he said again, are you? Am I? Am I your king or not? And wow. So those are some thoughts for you to think about too. I mean, if I'm going to get fussed at, I share what the fussing is so you can see about experience and see what that's about. So look at that and see if that applies to you too as well. I mean, when he says that you're forgiven, are you? Do you realize that you're forgiven and how that happened? That whole section about the song. And then you're accepted because he's condemned. Do you realize that? And that other phrase, amazing love, how can it be? That's a great question. How can that be? It can only be because of God and Jesus. That the King would die for me. What king do you know that dies for his people? What king do you know that does that? Amazing love, I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you. And then he asks that again. Do you? Is it your joy to honor me? And then in all that you do you honor me? That's the next question. So those are some questions for you too. So be encouraged today. And it's good to share with you some things that the Lord shares with me. And we'll see you next week. And be encouraged, like I said, because one, that God's talking to you. He's encouraging you. When he's disciplining, when he's talking to you about things and asking you questions like that, he's talking to you. You have a relationship. That's that kind of relationship when he can ask those questions and you listen and answer and think about those answers. That's a great relationship to have. So be encouraged today that you have a relationship with God. And if you don't, you might want to consider doing that. It's as simple as what Paul said, Lord. Sometimes, Lord, that's it. Because when you're in trouble, Lord, that's it. And you're acknowledging him as Lord. So be encouraged, and I'll see you next week.